Welcome back to another 100 Essential Films you gotta check out. This week we're going over Vertigo. Vertigo is a 1958 American film noir psychological thriller based off of the 1954 novel From Among the Dead. This stars James Stewart as John Ferguson and Kim Novak as possibly two people. I have a lot to say about this film, and I really hope that a few of you have watched it because I gotta talk to somebody about this. But let's get into the plot crunch of the movie before I get into my thoughts of the movie. James Stewart plays the part of John Ferguson, who is the detective for the San Francisco Police Department. The opening scene, we see him and another officer on a rooftop chase, where Ferguson slips and almost falls to his death, holding on to a rain gutter for dear life. As his partner tries to help, he falls to his death. So not only on top of the physical pain that Ferguson is in, now there's absolutely some trauma involved in this incident. We cut to a scene of him recovering at his ex-fiance's place where they are still friends, but it does raise an interesting point on whether or not Alfred Hitchcock actually likes James Stewart or not. I just watched him in The Rear Window where he starts off with one broken leg, and by the end of the movie, he has two broken legs. So I can't tell if Alfred Hitchcock keeps casting James Stewart in his movies because he likes him, or because he likes to see him in pain. I don't know. If anybody has any thoughts or theories, let me know down below. Ferguson is forced into an early retirement because the incident leaves him with a fear of heights and vertigo. Even though he has been forced into not working anymore, when he receives a call from an old college buddy named Gavin Elster, Gavin persuades him to investigate his wife, Madeline. Based off of the fact that his wife is acting very peculiar, Gavin explains to Ferguson that he believes his wife may be possessed by the spirit of Carlotta Valdez, who was a local woman that committed suicide many years before. Now we are tagging along with Ferguson as he sees some of these peculiar actions, such as Madeline visiting a graveyard and a museum to stare at just one picture, and even visiting a hotel. I don't want to get into all of the details of what he sees. That's, I'm assuming, half of the fun of this movie. At one point, Madeline jumps into the San Francisco Bay, and Ferguson rescues her and brings her back to his place. They strike up a conversation, play a little cat and mouse, and Madeline sneaks out of the house when Ferguson goes into the other room. She shows up at his house the following day, and they go out for a day on the town, just wandering around, and a fling begins to start, which really caught me off guard here. You're investigating the wife of a longtime friend, and not only does she know that you're around, like, I feel like the sneakiness as a detective or an investigator is kind of out the window at that point. Now you kind of start an affair with her, spending the day together and locking lips several times throughout it. Seems very WTF. This affair goes on for an undisclosed amount of time. I don't know if it's days, weeks, months, whatever. During one of their days together, Madeline tells Ferguson about a dream she has about the San Juan Bautista mission, which was the childhood home of Carlotta, which she claims she's never been to. Ferguson plans a trip out there, which may have brought back memory, may have done something to Madeline. While they're there, they profess their love for each other, and then Madeline runs into the church and up the bell tower, which Ferguson cannot get to because of his vertigo. As she reaches the top, we hear a scream, and we see her body fall past the window and land on one of the roofs below. This leaves him in a severe state of depression and leaves him almost catatonic for like 6 months to a year. And this was the part that I thought was just a very sad ending to a very blah movie. And now Act 3 starts. After recovering and being released, Ferguson starts visiting the places that Madeline used to frequent when they were together, and he swears he sees her every place he looks. Until one day he sees a girl that doesn't really look like her, but for some reason he is convinced it is her. He follows her back to her apartment, knocks on the door, and tries to convince her to have a conversation with him. He asks who she is, how long she's been there. She identifies herself as Judy Barton from Salina, Kansas. She has the ID, she has her license, she has everything. She has receipts of rent for the apartment that she's in going back the last 6 months. This is clearly Judy Barton. Ferguson asks her out to dinner, and she agrees to go with him. I'd like to say that this movie ends with a crazy twist, but instead we get the information right now, which kind of changes a lot of perspective for the rest of the movie. Judy sits down to write a note, more like a confession, to Ferguson, saying that she is Judy Barton, but she was hired by Gavin to play his wife in a very elaborate planned murder of his actual wife, in which Ferguson was meant to be a witness to. What? What? It's just so out of the left field right here. She decides to not give him the letter. She rips it up, and I guess decides to see where this goes from here. We get a series of scenes where Ferguson is getting Judy to dress more, act more, talk more like Madeline in a very unhealthy, toxic way that Judy is going along with, while at the same time trying to convince him to love her for who she is, even though she's a liar who was the girl that he did fall in love with, that he's trying to get back. It's really a bonkers situation. Now, I won't get into all of the details of how this ends, but I will say that at some point, Ferguson realizes Judy is Madeline. While doing some research on this film, I found out that when it was initially released, it had very mixed reviews. So that makes me feel not as alone in not really enjoying this movie, not liking this movie, maybe not getting this movie. But what I don't get is that it is now often cited as a classic Hitchcock film, and that it's one of the defining works of his career. And I really don't agree with that at all. At least I hope that this isn't the kind of film that defines his career. But I'm definitely curious to know what you guys think. So please, if you've seen this already, if you have any thoughts, comments, questions, leave them down below. I definitely want to get a conversation started about this, because everything from how little his vertigo was an issue in the movie, despite it being a significant plot point, I don't even know if vertigo was the right name for this movie, let alone the rest of the actions in the film. I don't regret watching it, and I'm very happy to move on to the next step of scratching it off of my list of 100 essential films you have to see. So let's get to the scratching. And this is the scratching of the 1958 Alfred Hitchcock film Vertigo. Oh, we got the spiral background, like the cover, or like the movie poster. And there's the scratching off of Vertigo. So that is the scratching off of Vertigo from 1956. Next week we'll be checking out Some Like It Hot. Ooh la la. I think I've heard of that movie, but I don't know what it's about, and I've never seen it. So I'm very curious to check it out and see what the hype is. I want to thank everybody for taking the time out of your day to watch this review. Very big I love you. Thank you to my Patreon subscribers whose names are going to pop up in just a minute. Don't forget to hit those buttons down below, the like, comment, subscribe. And until next time, I'll see you next Tuesday. Later days.